Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome in Sala delle Colonne, Giustinian, the headquarters of La Biennale di Venezia. We welcome the audience here in person and connected remotely on the social websites of La Biennale. We are here for the awarding of the Golden Lion for Lifetime Achievement to Elisabeth LeCompte, co-founder and director of the Wooster Group. We saw the beautiful show yesterday night, Symphony of Rats. There will be another show tonight at Teatro Tese. We can start the ceremony with the artistic director of the International Theatre Festival, who will read the motivation for the award. Good morning.
Elisabeth LeCompte's work affects a personal, individual story which coincides with the story of the United States of America avant-garde theater. Over the course of 50 years, she has tenaciously created an incredible, unique body of work. What, baby? She's still directing me after all these years. Louder? Louder? Say again? Clearer? Oh, okay, okay. I'll do my best. Oh, no. Okay. Elisabeth LeCompte. Work affects a personal, individual story which coincides with the story of the United States of American avant-garde theater. Over the course of 50 years, she has tenaciously, better? Okay. Created an incredible, unique body of work that has had a profound influence on theater worldwide. She was born in New Jersey in 1944. Do the math. And went to university to study painting and drawing. When she graduated, she moved to big bad New York City. The late 60s were a time of social and political upheaval in the US, the Vietnam War, bankrupt New York, the struggle for civil and women's rights compared to now. I mean, with no institutional or government or corporate support, people were finding alternative ways to make theater. In the early 70s, LeCompte started working as a photographer and assistant director to Richard Schechner, who directed the Performance Group. They had their own space, the Performing Garage, a former metal stamping factory in Soho. After a long tour to India, with Schechner's production of Mother Courage and Her Children, LeCompte returned to work initially as an outside eye and then director and designer of Spalding Gray's autobiographical work. Seconded Point, 1975, which was essentially a movement piece of images meditating on his youth. Then LeCompte and Gray made Rumstick Road, 1977, which used taped interviews with his family about his mother's suicide. And Nayat School, 1978, which employed portions of T.S. Eliot's The Cocktail Party, performed by children. Although the group shared some performers and the space with Richard Schechner's Performance Group for a few years after, the new piece, Point Judith, 1979, marked the end of the character and autobiographical impulse of Spalding Gray and began the formal independence of the Wooster Group, who included Elisabeth LeCompte, Jim Clayburgh, who's here now, Spalding Gray, Ron Vauder, Libby Howes, Peyton Smith, Kate Valk, and Willem Dafoe. Boo! The company would rehearse during the day and often show works in progress at night. After some initial success with critics, the press became generally negative. And Elizabeth LeCompte stopped inviting them to review the work. She's clever. It was not until some success arrived in European touring that US press were asked to return, and over time, they changed to a decidedly more positive estimation of the work. In words such as Secundit Point, Rumstick Road, Route 1 and 9, LSD, Just the High Points, North Atlantic, or also Harry Ape, or the reinvention of classics like To You the Birdie, based on Phèdre, Hamlet, La Didone, based on Francesco Cavalli's opera, or Cry Trojans from Troilus and Cressida, to the more recent B-side Negro folklore from Texas State Prisons, 2017, The Mother, 2021, and Get Your Ass in the Water and Swim Like Me, 2024. Nice title. LeCompte's work has stood out for its incisive politics, intellectual rigor, and social militancy. Whether she intended to or not, her work has tackled difficult issues: violence against women, racism, and the dehumanization within the capitalist system, influencing the theatrical world by opening it up to debates on current affairs, politics, and culture in a consistent and determined path, resulting from in-depth study and innovative techniques, with the physicality of the actor always remaining at the heart of it. Throughout all these years, Elizabeth has worked on both classics and original texts, developed in constant dialogue with the company in her idea of community theater, creating over 50 productions. For LeCompte, theater is a physical action that must be done proudly and stubbornly outside of the commercial production system. Her work embodies a continuous battle for creative independence, both individual and collective, which has become a human and artistic model for generations to come. After receiving the prestigious MacArthur Fellowship, the title of Ordre des Arts et des Lettres from the French government, and countless other awards, Elizabeth LeCompte is now receiving the Golden Lion for Lifetime Achievement at this Biennale Teatro 2025.
Invitiamo a salire sul palco.
We invite the president of La Biennale di Venezia, Pietrangelo Buttafuoco, and Elizabeth LeCompte. Please join us on stage.
My script.
It's mine.
Sorry, just kidding. Yes. Okay. I'm going to read the script, this speech, because it said it on the whatever they gave me that I was to read my speech. So I didn't memorize it. So I will be reading it. So thank you. Thank you to President Buttafuoco. Buttafuoco. Oh, Buttafuoco, I'm so sorry. And I practiced it so long. And to the board of the Biennale. And thank you to Willem Dafoe, known to us as Billy, the artistic director of this Biennale. The Wooster Group is, and always has been, an ongoing experiment, a collision of bodies, machines, texts, and ghosts. We break things apart, and then we see how they might fit back together again to make something new. And if that's worth a golden lion, then I accept it. On behalf of every collaborator, every crazy technician, every actor who's ever asked, what if we try it this way? And so, sorry, I was reading it, and so I deserve this award only in part. The larger part belongs to my colleagues in the group. They have given me all that I have. The way we work together is extraordinary, and I am very, very lucky. Thank you. Grazie a tutti.
Thank you all. Allow me to remind you that after this nice ceremony, there will be a talk, a meeting with Elizabeth LeCompte and Kate Volk, the Wooster Group, moderated by Lorenzo Pavolini, a writer and a conductor and a presenter for Rai 3.
Buongiorno e grazie a tutto il pubblico.
Good morning, and I thank our audience. I want to thank La Biennale, the president, for giving us the opportunity to be here to have a conversation with Elisabeth LeCompte and Kate Valk. I hope I will be as funny as the director has been so far. Thank you, and congratulations for this award, but also for your show, Symphony of Rats, we saw yesterday night, that will be again on stage tonight. I thank the director, the co-director, performance, actors, and the whole staff that organized it. It was really very funny, with an intelligent series of references and stimuli that are really surprising, very complex, but at the same time able to involve and amuse the audience. I was in the audience yesterday, and it was a great surprise. I am asking Elisabeth at once, can you hear me in English? Can you hear the English translation? Can you hear me? Yes. Channel number 2. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Can you hear the translation? I am asking. Can you hear me? She's connected with. Can you hear me?
Successo ieri in nessun secondo del suo complessissimo spettacolo. Ecco qua. Ma intanto il.
Can you hear me now? The first question I was going to ask. This is a Golden Lion for a Lifetime Achievement, and we heard Willem Dafoe telling about the story of the 50 years of work of Elisabeth LeCompte. I would like her to. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? I was asking you to go back.
Ecco, parleremo anche di questa.
We're going to talk about this, that technology is not a thing for Elisabeth. Whereas yesterday night, technology proved to be something that has a lot to do with Wooster Group. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Sentiamo.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Okay. We managed to.
Meglio andare lì direttamente.
Let us make a jump backwards to the origin, to the very root of your theater that was born at the end of the 1960s, and this vocation towards a collective theater, community theater, theater made with the others. What happened at the end of the 1960s in that New York that was going bankrupt, New York that was calling for a new effort to reinvent theater? And you managed to find this new way together with the others, with other bodies in a room, I'm asking you to go back with your mind to that initial vocation. Where did it come from? From the context or from your idea of a collective interpretation of the situation?
Did you guys hear that? Oh, yes, you did, of course.
Yeah, well, I can tell you the question is,
Could you?
can you
Yeah.
go back and talk about how you started working in a group at the Performing Garage? What brought you to the garage? What was the city like? You know, the city was bankrupt, and so there was a lot of space. There was a lot of empty places in downtown Manhattan. So people could work collectively in a group and take time. And
Yeah.
but I didn't come until 1979, so I don't know what it was like for Liz, but I imagine the Performing Garage was an abandoned factory. And there were many artist collectives at the time, and they were Fluxus movement. And the Performing Garage, our theater, is in one such artist co-op, which was Fluxus House number 3, where artists got together, they paid the back taxes on abandoned real estate, brought it up to code, and were able to work tax exempt in Soho in particular. And that is one of the reasons why the group has been able to stay together as long as it has, is because we don't pay rent to a landlord. We are still part of the artist co-op. And of course, real estate taxes are going higher and higher, and real estate is tighter, but still we have the Performing Garage, and that allows us a place to go every day and work with Liz.
Thank you, Katie. I don't remember a lot of that, so. Wiped it away. Yeah.
Ok, and questa edizione della Biennale.
This edition of La Biennale Theatre Festival has an ideal connection with its past, with the history of La Biennale itself. You see the exhibition Biennale Teatro 1975 there at the bottom of the room. When you were 20, you got in touch with Grotowski's work, and you mentioned a sentence referred by Thomas Richards, by Grotowski, who refers to his dialogue with his forebears, a dialogue in which he never agrees with his forebears. I am asking Elizabeth how much this dialogue with people of the past. You also mentioned ghosts in your speech. The dialogue with the past is something private, or is it something that has also a public reflection?
The last part of that, the ghosts in the past. When you get to be my age and you've been working so long, there's a kind of problem of sentimentality that you have to resist. So I like to think about everything that I've done as a ghost. It's not only people that are ghosts, but it's also the work that's a ghost. And so in some cases, I really feel that we work as though in a seance of some sort, to bring back those, to make something new out of some material, as I said in my speech, some material that's old in my body and in my soul, to bring it back in a new way. And so the ghost is not a specific, and it's not a frightening thing. It's just something that hovers. And it's more like, what do we call it, Katie? Not the word for sentiment, but
Nostalgia.
nostalgia, yeah. it's more nostalgia. And so I'm always aware of the history that I'm working from, and not only from the history from our own work, but the history, the whole artistic history that I have consumed over my lifetime. It's just like it's always there, somewhere, and it feels new every time I see it again. It feels new. And that, I think, is what makes me continue to work.
Grazie, questo sì è molto.
This is very clear in your theater. In the scene yesterday, signs were layering upon one another from the Chirico to the Radiohead. There is a wide range of history and ghosts in your show. Speaking about Symphony of Rats, I would like to ask you, what was the first time you met Richard Foreman, the author, a pioneer in avant-garde theater, as far as this definition can be correct? He disappeared. He passed away this last year. Symphony of Red, it was a co-production of yours with him in the 1980s as well. How did you meet him, and what was the relation between Wooster Group and Richard Foreman?
I don't remember when I met Richard. I actually saw one of his pieces, a very early piece on Wooster Street, probably in the late 70s, I think. So I followed him, and I do remember walking out of one of his pieces, a very early one. Was it Potato Head, maybe? No, it was a little after
Rhoda
that.
in Potato
Rhoda
Land.
in Potato Land, sorry. I was still Richard Schechner's
Assistant director.
yeah, I guess assistant director. And I thought coming out of the door onto Broadway, and I thought that I could make work. It just made me say, I can make work. That was not so of Grotowski. Grotowski was an amazing figure for me, but he didn't attract that I could follow in his steps. I just would follow that he had a group, and that the group made the work, and I recognized that.
E rispetto
And as regards the production of the 1980s of Symphony of Rats, the show has been changed a lot, renewed a lot. I would like to ask you, how did you betray, in order to be faithful to Richard Foreman's work? There is a symphonic layout, a musical, rhythmic layout. I think it did not have in the 1980s, that somehow reflects the idea that is in the title of the piece. How did you manage so many years later to respect and renew the work? That mention of nostalgia you made before, maintaining a continuity with the past, and at the same time to renovate your work so much.
You should take this.
I'll just take the beginning. I was in the original Symphony of Rats in 1988, and I loved working with Richard. It was a very fertile playground, but it was his playground. And I was intrigued by the writing, but I was quite young and I didn't understand it, but it got into my subconscious. And a couple years ago, Liz and I were thinking, well, what next? And what can we do? Whose story can we tell? And because the whole question of representation in theater was tantamount to, trouble, yeah, thank you. And I thought, Richard Foreman. It came to me when our sound artist, brilliant Eric Sluter, he and I were driving on the Croatian coast, and I was telling him about Symphony of Rats, and he was intrigued. I thought, we should do Symphony of Rats again because it's a good role for Ari Filiakos, who is a member of the company, and Udom and Michaela and Andy, and it was just seemed like the young people in the company would get really turned on by it, and so they all seemed eager. So we went back, and Jim Fletcher, it was a great role for Jim. So it was always a way of thinking how to keep our current company, all the young artists, engaged and find a good vehicle for all of us. And I wanted to return to Richard's writing, and Richard would let us do anything we wanted. I knew it. I knew we would go to him and say, Richard, can we do your text? Can we use your text? And he said, I don't care what you do. I hope it's completely unrecognizable. And Liz said, well, then you can come to the first show. And he said, yes, I will, and I'll stand up and say that's not the way it was.
Yes, and also, for me, Foreman was always a visual artist. I did enjoy his words, but I mostly enjoyed the way he used the words next to his visual, his architectonic pictures that he would make and remake over the hour and 15 minutes. So Katie really took that part of it, and I tried to look for the story in it, which is always what I kind of do. And I couldn't deal with the words. They were just too abstract for me at first. But we decided to put it into verse. And as soon as we put it into verse, I could understand it totally. So that was a big breakthrough, I think, for us. And I don't think he always kind of worked toward trying to make it sound more natural. But for me, I just went the totally opposite way. And that gave me a way of opening up my mind to whatever could come into it. And basically, during that time, I happened to be watching a lot of TV. I hardly ever watch TV, but a lie. But I was watching a lot of TV. I would go home for my 45-minute lunch break and turn on the TV, turn on TCM. And there were always these fantastic things. And of course, HBO. So I would toggle through, and I found, it's not Mob Squad. What's the squad? Suicide Squad. Do you know? And it was like the energy that I was looking for his words, because if you ever watch that, it's a comic strip, basically. So it's very, the language is very simple, and it's very organic, it's very strong. So I think that was a big influence on me.
If I may,
please.
Richard, in the original Symphony of Rats, there were 2 women and 2 men. And I would venture, I don't know anything about psychology, but I would say more Freudian. There was much more of a polar tension between the sexes, between the male mind and the female body. And that's something Liz and I wanted to get rid of right away. Because it seemed regressive, so we changed. And Richard's writing doesn't have character assignations outside of the president, so it didn't matter whether it was male or female. So we said no women in the show, only men, and we will find a way to represent a female entity in the piece. And at the same time, the AI tools were coming out, and the AI filters that you can put on voices. And so we recorded Liz doing a lot of the super consciousness, the big consciousness that the president has to face, which in the original piece was Richard Foreman himself on video. And so we recorded
Foreman.
Liz and then put her through an AI filter called Renee. Eric did that. And it became the character Renee, who is the female presence, but with no body unless she wants one. Then she's honeybee, or then she's a stick figure. But we wanted to make that new idea of outside of, beyond good and evil, beyond male, female, Freudian, to make what our conflict is now in human life between consciousness of machines and consciousness of the mind, the body.
Fantastico, grazie.
Thank you. This is an answer that can answer to a lot of questions that we're going to ask. So I will be faster, and I will ask you a question that, and I think that for the public of the Wooster group, it is always challenging to understand the relation between the body of the actors and technology, the objects, to blur somehow the border between the body and the things might seem to be a peculiar characteristics of Wooster Group's theater. I think that technology makes the bodily presence of the actors even more strong, even stronger. This is what we saw yesterday. The objective of putting up a scene with objects, bodies, and technology is showing the importance of the human nature, of the human element. Is it so?
I'm sorry, we're distracted because it looks like a big brass just came in. Hello.
L'effetto dell'uniforme. Buongiorno.
Well, very impressive. What was the question?
Di fronte all'uniforme effettivamente uno si distrae facilmente.
You can get distracted by uniforms. My question was about the relationship between technology and the bodies of the actors. This makes even more bodily the performance of the actors. They are both human and mechanic at the same time, but we feel them more human, if possible, thanks to technology. I think this work has a political function.
Great question.
Domanda, ho fatto anche la
Yes.
risposta. La risposta è sì. Grazie.
The answer is yes, thank you. I didn't want to answer to my question by myself. I would like to ask you something about the political function of theater in the work of Wooster Group. The director of the theater festival was mentioning this. It is still very clear. A show that has the President of the United States at the center of the scene might seem a political show, but it is not at all educational, because this choice, male and female, the Wooster Group never tries to be educational in its function. What you aim at is freedom. You still have freedom as a group of artists, as directors. You have the freedom to choose and compose the scene in an extremely free way. I think this is the political choice you have made, to be free. And this allows you not to have direct references to artificial intelligence, for example, that might seem a political theme to be discussed today. Is this your political choice with Wooster Group?
I mean, that was, yes. That's,
Microphone.
oh, yeah, it is now. That you put it in that way. I'm very present-minded, and I will now take that and take it back into the group.
Yeah.
You heard it, right?
Yeah, well,
That's what we'll do.
yeah, I think
And that's
that's
very beautiful. Thank
I
you.
think that's the political nature of, I mean, Liz is very involved in politics and follows politics closely, but it doesn't, it's not, you, I think, hit the nail on the head when you said that it's not overtly political, that we're looking I mean, it's the very way we operate as a group, that after all these years, we're still a group. We're not an institution in that way, where the work is defined by who's in the room. Who's in the room, standing in that metaphorical circle, as Richard Foreman would say, getting into a metaphorical ring with a metaphorical wild tiger. And that's what it is every day, is that we all come together and people bring in themselves as human material. They bring in what they're playing with, what machines they have, and what technology they have, what they're interested in, what they saw, what they heard, what they need to do. And Liz is using everyone in the room. Actors and technicians are not distinguished as different departments. We're all collaborating in a way that can't be taught at school, and it's not easy, and people sacrifice a lot to work with the group. We work hard to Cynthia Hedstrom, who needs mentioning. People work very hard to raise money so we can pay some kind of livable wage, but people, they could make a lot more money somewhere else. So obviously, these young artists who we have in the company now are finding what they need spiritually and politically by working the way we work.
Cosa può significare di fronte a questo
What can be the meaning of your telling about the relations of the people within the room, the fact that you used actors like furniture, pieces of furniture?
I mean, furniture well, no, not in a metaphorical. I mean, if you ask someone to think of what kind of a chair you are, the person doesn't think about how he's going to look. He thinks about the function of the body in some way, which always sets you off in some way that's new, that he doesn't know how to do it. And if you can catch an actor in that place, not knowing what they're going to be looking like, it's magic, it's fantastic. So I think I just use something like that. That's only one strategy. The other strategies have to do with technology. Like we use the television so that the actor can take movements off of something on the television. If there's movement, anything on the television, like a movie or just someone talking, if the actor looks at that while he's moving, it changes how he's presenting himself to us. It gives him a place to go outside of himself without having to think always of how am I giving this to this one place, but it makes it all in the round somehow. And you can, I think they would talk about it. You can talk about it. You know what it does. Well, thank God.
I missed the it. What's the it?
Well,
What's the it?
how when you work with the televisions, for instance, or you work with something you're listening to that's not.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been developing this aesthetic
For a long
over decades. And we use in-ear receivers, we use monitors that the audience can't see, that the performers are receiving information from. We're wired, we're mic'd, we're wired, we make a joke, we should just have a portal in our neck. But in the other way, it's like that's how we live our lives, and that's where people exist. And so the technology in a Wooster Group piece isn't a decoration. It's not something that comes in at the end to make a big projection to make it fancy. We are dancing with the technology, I like to say. Is that we are totally it's becoming an extension of us, and it is running us, vice versa, so we're in a dance, in a two-way. We got a thing going on with the technology.
la condizione.
The mental condition in which Richard Foreman was imagining to place his public, his audience, was a mental condition that coincided with his mental condition. Do not think, become a thought yourself. Is there a mental condition you want your audience to enter when watching your shows? Besides surprising your audience.
Oh, you can see I don't know anything about technology, right? I don't know. I wait for the audience. I mean, we develop our work always in front of an audience. So we often open a show before it's really ready, you know. And sometimes we invent something like 10 minutes before we go on. It's because I'm always sitting in the audience and feeling, well, what's going on in the audience. And sometimes it's really painful. And when it is, I have to decide, is that pain important to this piece that I'm feeling about how the audience must be feeling? And sometimes I say, oh, that's too much. You know, I have to adjust it. So the audience is always an integral part of how I work with the piece.
Abbiamo finito, non vi preoccupate.
We're almost over. There is a beautiful interview dating a few years ago on Paris Review. You can find it online, and it is really genial because the interviewer at the end asked Elizabeth, don't you think it is the moment to have a book about the Wooster group, something collecting the work of so many years? I think it is still work in progress somehow, your work. And Elizabeth laughed in the face of the interviewer, and she answered, there will never be a book like this. Do you think there will be a time for a book on the history of Wooster Brooks so that we can have something about theater that is that is escaping in front of us, that is running away from life?
No interest in that at all. And I think it's because I don't have an interest in history in that way. I mean, so much about history is present to me all the time. I don't have a sense of something happening back there or in time. It's right there in my head. And so I don't mind that there's no book. I don't want to see anything that I did before. I mean, I only watch things that I did before in order to sell them, you know, to try to make them so people will want to hire us. But other than that, I have no interest in that. And do you?
Yeah. I would like to do, well, books are so expensive, you know, to get really good pictures in a book, that I think the online is better. I've already begun collecting stories, and I would like to make a compendium of, not so much, I'm not interested in writers writing about the work. I'm interested in collecting stories and making more of an anthology that way. So,
But that's like a new piece.
but that is, we don't have time, you know, it takes a lot of money and resources to do a book, so I don't know, we have to leave that book to someone else, I think.
E questa è la meraviglia del teatro, che non si può fermare.
This is what is fantastic about theater. You cannot fix it in a book. Thank you.